volume of installs, and and that's why we have seen some decrease of App Store rankings. You know, everything is based on downloads as well. So isn't it? Does the return of investment increased after that manipulations?
Yeah, I mean, yes. It's like always from my experience that the companies they building some kind of pyramid, some of the different behavior that have the probability for the and specific value. So it means that even if we talk about those universal app campaigns focused on the high value users, or if we have even such campaigns as top 11, when we have the specific product used for the promotion, in this case YouTube, very often we have the pyramid. Yeah? So okay, we have the first base, which is okay, I want to reach the user with the scale, because I mean, I don't care about who it is, just I want to reach the users with a specific chip install. Yeah, so from my LTV calculation, I can afford to pay up to €2 for such user. Then I have the next segment. So from my data, the data shows me that okay, from the users that are paying in my app, the highest revenue per user is coming from the young males. Yeah, so that means that is, or from the people who got at least to the 5th level, or like any other event. So that audience is actually, it has much higher probabilities to spend. So in this case, I can afford up to €4 for such user. And then I have another layer, like if the user, for example, download the app, but he download from YouTube. So he downloaded the app not only from the text or the image app. He saw, okay, what's the app about, how to use it. So this 30 seconds, of course, has much higher value than just the image. Then the value from such user is much higher, so I can afford up to €10 for such user. So at the end of the day, strategy is about really building those layers and then starting from those have the highest, the lowest value, but then the biggest scale, and then going more in the funnel. Okay, there are specific segments that are very valuable. For example, the user who is very young and he came from YouTube. That's like my ideal audience, but of course, there is just specific percentage of user who I'm able to acquire from that specific, especially if we are talking about the situation when I'm not just the starting player, I have the game for a long time, so there is specific saturation in the market, so it's not so easy to get any additional way. Like, so that's very often the definition for the highest paying users. So that's it's more about it's more about how to create the pyramid of the value, and then having different lifetime value calculation from for the different users, rather than just looking at those lowest hanging fruits. Because that's actually what Ravi was saying, that okay, it's great. I mean, no. So it's Mladen. It's like great that you have like very great ROI, but we have the great ROI on the 100 installs. Yeah, it's like everybody knows how to do it. Yeah, it's much more difficult how to do it on 100,000 installs.
But should indie developers start thinking about that next level of pyramid when they have, for example, $1 million or $10 million or even $100,000 or whatever?
I think it's hard to think about such analysis at the beginning because you need to have such specific data for that. Yeah, but I wouldn't do it once you have 1 million downloads, because it's pretty huge scale. So either you have really good venture capital who is not really asking many questions and is believing in your product, but then it can be quite dangerous strategy as well. I would start to much faster. And actually, that's why if I talk about causality and correlation as well, actually, it's even very easy to go to Google, just write A/B calculator, and for example, it gives you the information how many users and how many installs you need to get some significant results. So I think having even a few hundred active users per day it's very often enough to start some analysis. It's at least to try to build such a pyramid.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Now let's change some rules. If you want to catch some questions, just throw these Pokeballs in the guy who will asking you. Okay, who will be catched by this Pokeball?
But what's the rule? Oh, sorry, I didn't get it.
Who wants to answer, he throws the ball, or what? No.
No. Who? If you see someone who wants to ask a question, and you want this guy to ask a question, just throw the ball in this guy, and he will ask.
Okay.
Okay, who will be the luckier?
Thank you. I had a question for Rami regarding rewarded ads. So basically, you told about how gathering revenue for game developers, but I want to listen about take people who publish it, basically who are, who given ads. So we heard that it pushes up CRM, but can they pick up the takes? For example, I want this like target audience. I want like these games. I want to be advertised there, and card publishers decline those because obviously I don't know, like Clash of Kings won't be adding rewarded videos for Mobile Strike and vice versa.
Yeah, so there's two things here. So is this working? Yeah. So there's two things here. So on one hand, on the publisher side, so there is, depending on the product you use, there's two products that you can monetize, which is AdMob and AdX. So AdMob is if you're a mobile-only kind of game developer, like AdMob is much more easy to use. AdX, then you start having those more complex kind of decision trees, if you may say, to decide, okay, I actually want only to get ads from this type of advertisers, or you can strike private deals with certain, like you can make a deal with Zynga and just show videos from Zynga about their games, and then they would probably pay much higher if they're interested in your target audience, right? So it's kind of like a private marketplace where you can do certain special deals with different advertisers. But if you choose the simple product, which is AdMob, you don't have that much control, and a lot of developers generally don't decide to pick and choose their advertiser pool. And the advertisers on their side, I'm not sure if they can actually choose what kind of developers or not to advertise on. But on the publisher side, you have the option, if you decide to go for a more sophisticated product, to really pick and choose on a more like detailed kind of custom advertiser pool.
Thank you for question. Please raise your hand.
Hello. I have two questions. What is the advantage of Firebase in comparison of Google Analytics? Why should I use or switch to Firebase? And the second question, in universal campaigns, I have no option to select only ads in Google Play. Not web search, not YouTube, just I need ads in Google Play. Why I have no such options? I expect higher conversion rate for people who make searches for specific keywords, so I expect more relevant audience.
So, okay, I will take the first. If we talk about Google Analytics versus Firebase, yes. So let's get back to the history. Historically, it was that the Google Analytics was really huge revolution, because I would say in the past this data management, understanding the users was available only for pretty small number of the advertisers who were actually able to pay for the products. Very often product was quite difficult to use and so on. So then the Universal Analytics came, Google Analytics, and then new version, Universal Analytics. And actually it got new features like every 3-4 months actually, like new things that were added. So that specific point, it became really like pretty significant number of different reports features. And then there was the thing related to the apps. So at the beginning, this regular Google Analytics was used for apps, and then there was created new version of Google Analytics specific just for the apps that had some similar features like report segmentation and some different ones like crash reporting and so on. But then at the specific point, even if the product was great, that has, I would say, one enormous advantage and one quite significant disadvantage, and one smaller. So one enormous advantage was that because it was based on the Google Analytics, it was able to give a lot of data and segmentation ad hoc. So like, for example, you were analyzing the users in your app, and you discovered, okay, the people who are younger are actually, they have much higher probability to spend. So let's segment those users and let's find out about how they're behaving in the app and so. So you're able even to create that segment and even apply it to the data from the last 2 years to really validate your hypothesis that that group is different, behaving different. So maybe, for example, you even change the app for that specific group of users if you have that signals. But then it had a significant disadvantage correlated with that. It is because that the whole engine was able to do it ad hoc, it actually had the sampling as well. So sampling, which is once you have enormous number of data, you actually start analyze the data ad hoc, not on the all data, but just specific part of the data. Yeah, for example, based on the 10% of the users. So, and if we add additional, I would say, limitations like that, in general, that sampling is not turned on by default. It's actually turned on by default for proper that have more than 10 million hits per month. That actually, it became quite significant limitation for apps, which very often, like 10 million hits for apps is not really a lot. So that's why that was one of main reasons why the Firebase was created. And then the second reason was that if we talk about the apps, very often the feedback from developers was that actually, in many cases, if we talk about data analysis, it's quite important part of our job, but it's not always very like the main part, yeah? Because beyond this data analysis, we need to build that app, we need to promote that app, we need to test the different features and so on. So data analysis actually some part of the job. So if we talk about our task, we need the tools that actually it's much more comprehensive. Actually, it's not only about just specific part of this, which is the data analysis, but it's about the whole development. So that's why if we even compare Firebase to Google Analytics, not really apple to apple comparison, because the Google Analytics is just the data analysis tool versus the Firebase is actually it's actually almost the platform, yeah, which you can use really to adjust the content of the app, create a notification, and so on. So like many different services in one place. And then the last aspect, which is even if we talk about the business, what I see even right now, both tools are actually used at the same time. Because if we talk about actually we can say that even in data analytics you have two main parts of the data analysis. The first one is actually segmentation and user behavior, and the second one is actually broad understanding of attribution. So how to attribute different value for the purchase, how to attribute the download to the specific provider, and so on. So in this case, if we think about Google Analytics, I think it has many advantages even over Firebase in this first part, which is how to understand audience, how to segment the users, and based on many variables, versus the Firebase is, okay, once you understood how the users behave, what is the value, then you can create those events and the most important user properties based on that, and then easily really integrate with the others, which then at the end creates very powerful machine for very powerful and quite actually easy user acquisition. So that's I would see how I would see it like together. Then
Thank you. So I'll answer the second question regarding the possibility to build a universal app campaign that serves only search ads. So that was the question. So universal. Sorry.
Search versus play.
Yeah. So there are two types of strategies that you can apply for user acquisition. One of which is actually to go to silo the campaigns to have a standalone search campaign, standalone display campaign, standalone YouTube campaign. And then there's a little bit more simpler way, which is using universal app campaigns, where you just have to set a KPI, which would be a targeted cost of acquisition that you find affordable. And then you apply it in a campaign. You type in a few lines of text, put some images and videos, and then Google is going to be the conversion optimizer, which is our auto bidding system, is going to deliver the ads on a certain channel, which is like display, search, and YouTube, according to probability that he's going to hit the install for the target CPA that you actually applied. So it's kind of a little bit more automated system than having siloed campaigns, where you have to play with the budgets to go, okay, I'm gonna invest $200 today in YouTube, tomorrow maybe 150, and so on. So what Universal App Campaign does in the very core is to make everything automated for you to deliver you the KPI that you set at the beginning of the campaign. So it wouldn't make much sense actually to be able to play with the delivery on a certain channel among Universal App Campaign. So if you actually want to kind of silo that and extract it and isolate it in a standalone campaign, then I would build a search campaign. Was that a question? Or okay, so basically if you want to go with that, like you know that you have strategic keywords that you want to cover in 100% of the cases to have 100% impression share, regardless the KPIs that you have on all other channels, then I would say, okay, I'm gonna bid in a separate campaign on those keywords, and Universal App Campaign I'm gonna use to acquire as many possible users among all the channels for a target CPA that you set. Is that okay as an answer? Okay.
And maybe actually to add something, I think in this case, those two strategies do not exclude itself in a way. I think those strategies, especially related to the universal app campaigns with the specific CPA and the goal, I think it makes sense if you have pretty broad target group. If you decide, okay, that's the game, actually, probably most of the users that that's pretty high probability that will become they can download that game and actually play it. Probably the second approach is much more appropriate in the specific situations when your actually app has very specific target group. For example, you create the app for the makeup for the older people, older women, yeah. So like there is the app is how to make the older women look like better. So there is very specific target group. Just example, no offense, of course. Of course, that's always dangerous topic.
But you shouldn't exclude the people that are gonna buy the product so that older women to look better.
Yeah, that's that's vice versa. Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll ask next question by myself because I'm microphone owner. Sorry. My question has two parts. The first part, Mladen, do Google have a book with short rules how to make videos? And the second part, and is it public? And can we reach this book and learn something? And second part is how close Google works with developers who are making pre-roll videos or some videos for YouTube, and how Google helps them to make this video.
Okay, so the first one is a simple one. Basically, there's a site called Think with Google, on which you have various blogs and articles about how to do a certain stuff with the Google products, and you have there something that's called YouTube Playbook, which gives you a really comprehensive guidelines how to build a video for a certain industry and regarding the certain goal that you want to achieve with YouTube. The second question would be something that's more for the YouTube partnership, for the people that are working with the YouTube content creators. What I can say generally, but I cannot go deep in this topic because it goes beyond my role that I have within Google, is that people that work in YouTube partnership programs, they cooperate very tightly with the YouTube creators and help them how to build better YouTube channels and how actually to kind of, let's say, build a better content. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, who's next? Just throw the Pokeball.
Oh, sorry. Now you have to ask.
Hello, my name is Sergey, and I have also two questions. First, both of them about segmentation, and first of all about privacy. Okay, we have, for example, two segments: young girl and women with children. And first one is, for first one we prefer ad strategy, and for the second one we prefer in-app purchase strategy. Is it possible to, first of all, can we get information about age, or it will be closed for concrete device, concrete app instance? And the second one, is it possible to notify device about concrete strategy about for, okay, user install Apple, and I don't know, something thinks that it goal, so we need to apply ad strategy. How can we start ad strategy on concrete device?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm going to answer the question, but I'll try to paraphrase to see if I get it. So basically, first question was, can we understand within Google products the demographics of the audience, and can we apply somewhat dynamic ads towards the specific demography? Okay, do you want to answer?
Maybe first I will take the first part and then you continue. So even with Firebase or with Google Analytics, once you add some small code to your app, you will have the information about demographic of the users that is based on the Google technology, which is actually based not on the people's opinion, but it's based on their behavior. Yeah, so it's like Google has some kind of learning machine that is based on the people's behavior. It's able to understand what is like the age, or what is the interest, what is the demographic of that person. But of course, giving that information aggregated, so you are not able to say, okay, that the user of that specific device has that age. No, it's just for the whole information, for like the whole app. And then of course, so that's one part. And then if we talk about changing the behavior of the app for the specific group, of course, it's not only about the demographic, it's about the behavior as well, yeah, how they are behaving. So it's like, it can be specific data you got from Google about the demographic, but it can be that at the same time on your system you have another system that is having the assumption but that based on additional signals you are adding additional layer that, for example, that's probably that group had even children as well, but it's more about based on your data.
Yeah, I guess to add to that part of the question, so before jumping into quick conclusions that you want to target specific audience because you think like my audience is like girls or pregnant women or whatever, like it's very important to take a step back and really look at the data you have outside the demographics piece only. So you really need to, the signals you get might be something very behavioral, not demographic based. So again, like we shared some examples, but it's really before having like something like an already set conclusion in your head, to just look at the data from an observer's perspective and take a step back and see, okay, is it like Facebook, do you need 7 friends in the first 10 days, or is it the players who reach this level, or look at what really am I looking, or is it the whales that are more than 55 and female and are spending in my game. So you just have to look in a more objective view and then figure out, okay, is it the demographic piece I'm going after, or is it the behavioral piece, or what is it that I'm going after? And then you can, based on that, you can pick up the signals, and then through Firebase notifications, you can send a notification for people who haven't played your game in the past week to let them play again, for example. Or similar to like the DefGam app, they have been pushing notifications to us to come register, etc. So you can push notifications through Firebase based on a custom audience that you create. And yeah, like all the audience segments that you have on Firebase, that you segment them for your notifications, you can use the same audience to basically target any type of ad. So you can link that to the ad machine, and then you can figure out, okay, I don't want to show ads to like teenagers less than 15 years. So as long as you have that custom audience on the Firebase side, you can use that kind of to link it with the monetization. Is that okay?
When you were talking about the Football Manager app, and you were talking about testing the marketing campaign and optimizing it for like your test market first, and only then exporting it globally, and then you started talking about localization and everything. So my question is, do people not run into issues using this strategy? Because if you test it in one market, maybe it goes over really well there, but then you put it into 17 different languages, and people in these other countries, like in China, absolutely don't think this is funny. So do people, when they localize it, do they adapt it? Do they kind of make different versions of the marketing videos, or do they just translate it and hope it works?
Yeah, so it's definitely a good question, and there's no 100% correct answer to the question. So basically, when you go and expand globally, what we have done is we have done it on a controlled way. So we did build everything on 17 different languages. We did use professional translators who have adapted the ad text, for example, to a certain market instead of only translating, for example. So it was more like translated in the spirit of a market than a literal translation. So this is a part of the as the ad content customization goes. And then what you want to do is not just to create campaigns on 50 different markets, click play and see what happens. So we have tiered it up, like in tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And then we started with tier 1 markets, controlling, see if it is working, going to tier 2, and then going to tier 3 when it comes to all channels. When it comes to search, we basically opened it everywhere because we just have seen that the search performance is such an amazing one that we don't want to miss out the time, and it was a good decision for us. And then with the other channels, we were kind of gradually building them in the market and then testing, iterating, and seeing if something is working or not. Because what's the saying? You cannot make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. And you just have to go start with something that works. If it is not working on a certain market, change it, test it, do A/B testing, see if it is a content problem or if it is an app problem, gameplay problem, or whatever, and then, as I said, iterate and make it perfect through the time.
Right, so you would backpedal if you noticed that something wasn't performing.
Yeah, of course. As the whole user acquisition universe is kind of an ever-floating one. As I said, the presentation is when you have a winning strategy, that doesn't mean that you have to be a complacent. You just have to kind of in a background play and try different things to see if something works better, because not every strategy can last actually, or actually no strategy lasts forever. So yeah, there's a lot of iterations going on.
And maybe to add something that is actually in some way connected to this question is, even in marketing, in the product development, there are some countries that are seen as countries that are pretty good for testing, and actually they are used even by companies like Unilever, FMCG companies, or like the other companies. If on one side they are testing if that product makes sense for the product development, or if it actually if it will hit with the specific numbers. For example, very often Australia is seen as such market. Why? Because it's quite big, but it's not so huge as US. So even all people, of course, are speak English. So you can test many things related to the English. But on the other hand, it's not like US. If something will not be successful in Australia, you will survive. I mean, nothing will so happen. Yeah. So based on the data, you can really learn a lot, and then go to much more like sophisticated and expensive market like US or UK.
Yeah, maybe I would just add Canada as well. I've seen a lot of clients actually, which I worked with to soft launch the campaigns in a markets that have similar behavior as US, because like US is some kind of a holy grail of everybody who builds the apps, because they think they can monetize it in the US the best. So they apply that kind of strategy going for a soft launch in Canada, Australia, because it's the same language. It's somewhat smaller and it's kind of cheaper, and then they iterate, see if it is working, and then they go winning in the US.
Just two fun facts, maybe unrelated to Google, but from previous experience. So I used to work for Facebook before, and Facebook actually did the same for a lot of the products like being developed. They used to New Zealand actually as a test market. So they launched the product there. If it doesn't work, they kill it and nobody knows. And for the second fun fact, I've also read somewhere that Disney or Pixar or some of these companies that create movies, they've actually tried testing certain movies by changing the character in different markets based on the culture. So the same movie might have a male character in some countries and a female character in another country, just to adapt to the cultures. And it's really like the whole localization stuff is really interesting, and it's quite a challenge. But again, you know, there's no black or white answer. You just really have to keep testing and pushing.
Can I add a little bit more? It's not going to be a long one. I just want to say, with this US principle that actually people have, is because they see, okay, like the biggest lifetime value I can get among US audience, but they forget the return on investment part, whereas maybe I'm much better off going to Brazil or Turkey, where I'm going to get an install for 20 cents, but I'm going to have a lifetime value of 40 cents, than to go to United States to pay for the install for €6 and maybe break even. So there's a lot of, I'm not saying that you shouldn't advertise in the US, but I'm just saying there is a lot more in the world, and AdWords actually kind of gives you the opportunity to, you know, kind of export globally in a matter of days, minutes, or actually how much time do you need to translate the ads, and that's it.
Especially if we take into consideration such variables like retention and churn, yeah. So that's usually in such markets like US can be quite significant.
So okay, we have a time for only one last short question. So who it will be?
I don't know. So we have three. So let's take all.
I don't have heart to throw it to anybody.
Okay.
Can we have one more? Then I have one Pokeball.
You can throw it. Just you can.
It in the middle and then. No.
Who was first? Who it will be? You? Yeah. Okay.
Hello. Just one more question. You said that the new advanced system of universal campaign that use all that Firebase events
Yes.
for user acquisition. How many hidden signals your intelligence system used to determine those segments? Is it only age and gender and some apps, maybe some more signals, just to find out how smart and complex the system is?
I mean, so actually, I think in this case we have two separate things. The first one is it's our job to show to the system which event behavior is important and gives higher probability to have high value users. So if it's as we mentioned, getting to the first level, getting through tutorial, first payment, user registration, second day login. I mean, depends on the different lifetime value calculation and so on. But then once we have that in place, and then we let the system optimize for that specific install with high probability for that event, then the system is taking actually into consideration a lot of different variables like the age, gender, operating system, time of the day, specific placement once it's on display.
Is it 10? Is it 10, 20, or 50 signals?
As far as I remember, it's around 100 different signals.
Oh, 100. It's quite a complex system.
Yeah,
okay.
it's a very complex system.
So we can trust it.
Yeah.
Okay. And just as for the re-engagement, does it the new your product of universal ads, does it allow us to re-engage players like event specific?
Actually, no. For engagement, there are separate products which are related, and they are for search and for display, but they are separate types of campaigns.
Do we have time for two more short questions, or are we? No?
It's really sad, but no.
Okay, guys, so we're going to be outside. If anybody wants to ask a question, I will gladly answer.
Thank you, guys. It was great. Yeah.